So I've just been down to the machine shop because they finally opened up and I've bought the press brake attachment for the press. So I figured this would be the easiest and cheapest way to bend up some steel. So I've always wanted to have the ability to do it. This attachment allows me to do up to 6mm for I think a metre bend. So this should always be more than enough than I want. And it probably would be cheaper to get another company to cut it and bend it for me, but I guarantee you I'll fuck something up. So by the time I pay twice for somebody else to do it, I could have bought this and then I could do it free for every time on, and I can get it cut at work for nothing. So yes, so here's a top piece. You know, normally I don't read instructions, but this one doesn't have any at all, so it's going to be a little bit of figuring out. Leave it with me and I'll come back once it's assembled. Okay, now that's all assembled, we'll take it over to the press. Okay, here's two of the mounts that I got cut out at work. I've got a few others, but we'll start with these two just so we can sort of learn what we're going to do. And this is the same material cut out of the same sheet, so I just cut 100mm off, and we'll use that as a test piece. But once these fold down, it's going to be a bit hard to sand on the inside, so we'll just give it a quick sand. It's probably going to need another like hand sand in there after or whatever, and I am going to get everything sandblasted before paint, so it doesn't really matter, but it's literally no extra work. So these fold down, and then this here at the back will fold down. So I currently can't do that with that setup because as you bend that down, it throws these into the finger of the press brake. So it's not like a modular one where you can unbolt some fingers and stuff. I really wanted a swag off-road one, but by the time, I don't even think they shipped to Australia. It's either they didn't ship, or when I figured out how much shipping was cost, there was no point. So another reason I want to give these a quick sand is because these were done, I done these on a water jet, which is pretty non-conventional for cutting thinner material. If you're doing say like 100mm, you'd do a water jet, but you do a water jet, but normally you cut this on a laser replacement table or something. But that's what I had access to, so that is what we're going to use. So I'll get the sander out and we'll get sanded. I realized that when I was folding stuff up, you couldn't really see it too well or see what I was doing. Not that I'm professional or anything, and not that all the bends came out 100%, but just in case you want to, you know, bend something up, I was basically just making sure that the piece was squaring off and eyeing it up. And if I didn't have like a square thing to go off, like if the fold here to one of the bends off, sorry, one of the edges off this weren't square, I'd just even out to the other side if this side was straight. If none of that was going to be square, you'd have to, in your CAD or whatever, you'd have to figure out exactly what each measurement on the left and right is, and then you can measure out to it. So that was that. Okay, so it's the next day. I had a couple of problems with bending the steel. I've never bent steel before, but I mean, principle's pretty easy, but I was having problems with the tool. It wasn't clamping down correctly even once I centered everything up. That was a problem. I bent a couple of things wrong. That was just my mistake. I bent the middle mount, which is the big long one. I bent it in the wrong position, made it too short, but that's okay, we can cut another one. The other side I did correctly, and it actually works quite well. The fronts I need to get recut because I moved the body, raised up the chassis rail, and pardon me, and needs an extra 25mm added to one side. So we need to do that. And then the rear ones, I don't know why, but I didn't come down the chassis enough, so that just needs 50mm added to it. And then we should be fine. So I didn't film much of that just because it was a bit of a headache to figure out what I actually needed to do, but now that I've got it all, it's all sweet. So yeah, as you can see, my plates that weld to the chassis, not the actual mount but the back part of it, you can see that I'll show you one, the middle mount, the holes are off for the sway bar, and basically the front one's the same. The rear one doesn't matter because that doesn't affect anything, but the front one was the same in terms of parts that went around. That's because I took a photo with a ruler and I calibrated it in Fusion 360, but obviously like I haven't had my camera square to the chassis, so the photo's out on an angle like that, so they're out a bit. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of trying to redo that, I'll do a cardboard template and I'll cut it out by hand, and I'll make those 4 pieces by hand. So you can't see my face, but I just sort of run you through how I do templates. So a lot of people use cardboard just because it's what they got lying around, and normally it's the cardboard that you have your boxes come out of, which is like a thin sheet, and then wafers in between. I've always found that to be a pain, and I never get the template right, and it comes out like shit. So for me, I like to use paper, and if it's too wobbly, you can put masking tape over it, which will stiffen it up. Or the next best thing is your Coke cans that you get in the boxes. I like to use that. Obviously that's not very big, so for big templates it's not the best. So when you're making fish plates for a chassis, you always want to have radiuses on the ends. One, because a radius means that there's no direct point that the stress comes to, and at least with my engineer, he's asked that for no vertical welding along the chassis rail. So it means if you've got a nice radius on your template, it means really that you've got like just a very fine point of where you'd be vertically welding. So try and keep everything horizontal and diagonally as we can. Another thing that some people do that I'm not a fan of, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, which I think for this template I'm gonna have to do, is you just cut, I'll draw it here. So you do still have a vertical surface, but you get your weld surface by doing something like that. I've seen a lot of rock slider mount plates look like this. So you'll seam seal here, and then you'll get a weld here, and then you maybe have a break there and then do your weld there. obviously still keeping your 50mm increments. Just because of where this flat lines up, you know what, I'll take you out and I'll show you. So where this flat lines up, it basically lines up onto a factory weld, so it comes right to there. So I could do a radius. A radius might mean that I get more weld, or I could do the diagonal. I feel like the radius will be stronger, but the 45s are going to look stronger. I think I'll do a radius. So how I do a radius now, you could measure and then work out exactly, but if you're not being too pedantic about it and it doesn't really matter, you can just get, I normally like to get something that's round, that's bigger. Now obviously, if it's bigger than what the width is of your piece, you are going to end up with a flat spot, or a bigger flat spot, and it's not going to look as nice and that sort of thing. But so I just trace that, and then down here, I like to cut out on a bit of wood, and I use a razor blade. I use these at work all the time, so I find this much better in the hand than say a Stanley knife, but your Stanley knife is definitely going to be a lot nicer. Alright, so that's cut out. Obviously, like once I transfer this onto the steel, I can do a bit of massaging, make it, you know, exactly how I want it. I have a feeling I need to take a bit more out of this hole here, along this front section here. So I want to go test fit that. I'll mark up a few spots if I want to take it off, and then I'll come back. So I want to take off a little corner here, and then along the top here, I probably want to take 10mm off. Just because where it lands on the bottom of the radius, and I'm not allowed to weld on there, so I've got to take a little bit more off. Obviously, you've got to keep in mind that here you want to allow still enough meat so you don't get flimsy. Down here there is literally no choice. It is what it is, but once you know you weld in there and you weld at the bottom, it's not really going to matter anyway. So I need to mark the radius just to move it forward a bit. So this is my bodged up plate. Now the actual hole itself is good, it was just out a little bit, as well as the angles of going with the chassis. So I can use that as a template to move this hole forward a bit. And now that this is going to be a little bit bigger, it doesn't really matter because it gives a bit of room around it. Like, it doesn't have to be bang on. It's not like it's locking when it goes on. It's not like it's locking this into place or anything. So and plus it'll be filled with weld. Okay, so that's those basically done. I'll have to do a few more little adjustments. There's a couple of holes I want to pick up in the chassis. They're not really bolt holes or nothing, but if you want to run a breather hole into the chassis rail or something like that, I want to have it open, which, especially this one being near the front, and then this one's sort of near the front, good for breathers. So the stuff that I use, basically this is what everyone uses these days. Even, you know, when I did my first Hilux years and years ago, I used this in between, you know, anything that was like sandwiched together, like chassis bracing and that sort of thing. So I've gone around with my wax and grease remover and just gone over everything. The stuff that I've done, I think it might have been a bit too hot in the shed. Like I said, it was a 40-degree day, so it was probably cooking way too hot in here and sort of was going off before it could go on. So I've just gone over, gotten any of the loose shit off, and we'll do 2 coats on everything again. Like, it's a hot day today, but it's not as hot, so hopefully it's okay. It could have been something wrong with the can. It was coming out of the can a bit shit, so yeah, we'll start spraying now. Like I said, 2 coats on everything. I'm not going to do 2 coats on that back one there, and I'm not going to do any more now, because I did a heavy coat, which should be more than enough. And once I fold these up, it's probably going to buck up the paint in there, so I'll have to do another quick coat anyway. So they'll have more than enough anyway. But when you're done with your can, like most ones, upside down, spray it out so your tip doesn't get dirty. So this stuff retails for about 50 bucks a can. So like, a lot of people don't like to lather it on. I do, just because it's shit primer. Like, essentially that's what it is. That's what it's doing. It's a weld through primer, so its job's to be a primer that you can weld through, and it's not the best primer you could get. Like, you can get epoxy primers and that sort of thing that do way better than this, but for the job it's good. So I like to lather it on. It is a quick dry. I like to let it, cure for as long as possible, just to give, that surface in between a good chance. Now for chassis plating, where you're going to sandwich it, you're going to weld and seal and then paint over the top of it all anyway, so that should be fine. The reason I've done all the mounts is because once, say, this one goes on there, I'm going to get everything sandblasted and then epoxy primed anyway. So it's just for if, the sandblaster can't get in to some spots. It just means that, it's had paint on it and that it's going to be protected. So I've cut out my 2 chassis plates for the 2 front mounts. I've just done a rough cut. I've marked my paper template on my 350 grade steel. I've just done a rough outline and cut just past my template. What I'm going to do now is I'll just deburr these, and I'll tack these together so I can work the shape together so I don't have to do it twice. And once I'm happy with it on the template, I'll test it out on the car. And if that's fine, then I'll start working these inner, like the circle and the drainage hole. So I've tacked them together. So I hadn't tacked in different positions, but as I shaped it, I moved the tacks around so it didn't move, and so I could shape the whole part. I've just verified that it's still roughly the same shape as my template, and now I'm just going to go test it on the car to make sure that it makes sense. This wire is currently in the way because I was doing that the other day, so you might not be able to see, but that's more or less how it's gonna go. I have a bit of play, so I'm not too fast. Oh, all right, let's go mark. Now I've got to mark out the holes. No, the camera walked away from me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark out these holes for this drainage, the chassis drainage hole here. I'll do 2 18mm holes, and then I'll score it with a grinder and finish it off with a jigsaw. I'm just making sure I don't go into the radiuses. And then this one here, not 100% sure yet, but I'm probably gonna do a couple of 18mm holes and then cut it with the jigsaw. And then I'll go in with my die grinder and clean it up.
Something that has to be done.
cut at work. So these are all the screw ups. So yeah, I was fortunate enough, we're on break at the moment, so I was fortunate enough that my hair helped me out, came in, helped me cut some stuff on the water jet. So yeah, these are all basically for the bin. I've got a bit of a list of what we've got to do or what's coming up. So I've got to finish folding the mounts. So what that means is that, I can show you on this. I can do these two in the press brake that I've got, but I can't do this one because obviously this one's to throw them up. So what we've come up with is, my brother's a fitter turner, so I've given him some steel that's basically the same as this, and he's going to cut me a a point into them, so then I can cut up and make whatever I want. That's what these two pieces of steel here are for. They're gonna, so I've given him 300 lengths, and then I'll chop it down to the internal of that. I'll weld that on top, and then I'll put a sleeve to go into there, so that'll work. And then I've got some more just for future if we need to do anything. And then once that's done, I'll tack the mounts together, like the 2 or the 3 pieces, and then I'll tack them onto the chassis if everything works. One more coat on the mounts, that's what I've got to do now. And what we also need to do, I'll show you that in a sec, but I need to prep these to do test welds, like I've said before, for the engineer, for him to approve me. Okay, so that'll probably run out this episode. So in this episode we fixed and prepped and folded the rest of the mounts on and made the 2 templates. Probably on the next one I might show cutting them out, just the chassis plates, how I cut them out, and then maybe cleaning up the chassis, prepping that to be able to tack the mounts on and tacking them on. I might also show how I make my pinch, so that I can do the third bend in all these brackets, just in case you want to do it at home. It's a cheap and easy way. Yes, I've got my brother to do the point on his machine at work, so it's bang on, but you can do the same thing with a grinder. You can mark out half of the thickness of the material that you use, which should match whatever your V-block is. So obviously I've already got a V-block with what I got for my press, so you just mark half of that, and then whatever you've marked half, you measure back, so you get a 45, and then you grind that out. Obviously taking your time, making sure it's nice and straight. If you're handy on the grinder, then it's no problem. So, oh, that light's in the way. So yeah, obviously the qualities of all these videos aren't going to be the best, because I'm just doing it in my garage, and just putting the camera on, filming it, and that's it. So yeah, if you're enjoying it, make sure you let me know. If there's anything you think I can improve on, any tips or tricks or anything like that, also let me know. If you've got anything you're building, let me know. Maybe we can follow each other. But yeah, keep an eye out for the next episode. Shouldn't be too long before that comes out. Cheers.